Good morning.
Morning.
Everybody knows who you are. Dan
Yep.
from King Alfreds.
Yep.
How long have you been there now?
I've been there for 5 years. October 2017 I started.
What did you start as?
A bit interesting, really. So I worked at another school in the trust in Weston.
Right.
And at that point, I'd been there working under that trust, a Primary Learning Trust, for about a year. And the trust started working with King Alfreds. So the CEO at the time of the trust said that we're starting to do a bit of work with King Alfreds in Highbridge.
Yeah.
Would you go across and do a little bit of work with them? So initially, when I went across in say the October 17 as head of conduct.
Okay. Head of naughty people.
Sounds a bit strange, but it was just to go across and sort of look at culture and conduct in the school and what was happening there.
Yeah.
So I was sent across and I sort of sat within the leadership team, but I had sort of a non-teaching role, really. I just went across and I was sort of the person to go to in terms of conduct, culture, behaviour and stuff like that. So I went across there initially then in October 2017, and then by September 18, the start of the following academic year, a new principal had come in, Nathan Jenkins,
yeah.
And I was sort of then promoted into sort of deputy head vice principal role. Right. So I was vice principal role there for 3 years, and then I took over as acting principal in April last year, and then permanent in October. So I've been about 18 months in the headship.
So where did Mr Jenkins go?
He's now our CEO.
Oh, is he?
So when Mr Jenkins, having done 3 years of principal, he the old CEO moved on, retired, left,
yep.
And he took over in that April 2021.
Yeah.
And that's when I went in as acting. So he's now permanent CEO. I'm permanent principal. Oh, good. Yeah. So it's sort of good
nice.
Bit of succession.
Yeah, it is a bit, because I've seen it. If you see what I'm saying, so I've seen people go through that plan, and it's been really nice because I met you before Mr Jenkins came on. I'm sure.
That's right, probably early on, because he didn't start till about 9 months after me.
Yeah.
So I just started the school then, and obviously started liaising with you and how you can support us there and the work you've done with the school already. So so we've moved
at least, because we did stuff beforehand, but not quite as much as we do say today as a charity.
It was interesting for me because I was working in North Somerset, and even though it's just literally a mile over the border sort of thing, isn't it? In North Somerset at the time, personally, I had nothing to do with Summer House. Until I came to the Somerset Authority, so I had to ask Summer House. At that point, but obviously I realised quite soon how much work you do with schools in the area, and we are now. Yeah.
It's funny, really, because we do probably more work directly with your school. You're probably the biggest school that we do most direct work, which is brilliant in my opinion. A lot of the other schools we do work and they don't even know we're doing it because the kids don't want to be seen by whoever they've got in the school when they get seen outside, which is an interest because we had a grant given to us by Cheddar Parish Council, and they 4 kids from local high school, Kings of Wessex, and they said. And the Kings of Wessex rang us and said, "Are you going to come in and do the work?" And I went, "No, we do the work in the community. They don't even know we're doing it."
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
and we will talk at school with the children, with our pastoral team, about the work you do. So it's a bit more sort of well known in the school. That, Summer House are an external agency that we liaise with, and students will talk about it. We do a bit of student voice, student council, and they will talk openly about. They're aware of you guys, and it's really good. Because it's important.
Must be joined up working.
Yeah, of course it is.
I think it's so important for the kids to have that. I mean, and we see a lot of your kids outside of school that you don't even know about.
Yeah, well, that's right,
and that's how it should be.
Yeah, that's how it should be.
Yeah.
Because there's some confidentiality around things and privacy, isn't
there?
So it's important that the students that are seeing you, or the children that are seeing you outside of school. You don't have to know about that as long as they're getting the service that they require and they're happy and it's supporting them and their families. That's the most important thing.
I think one of the things, it's been a downfall for us to a certain. It's not because actually but it has to a certain degree because we've been so confidential. People didn't even really know we existed.
That's the problem, isn't it? So you've got to find that balance. I think we've got the balance right at school. I mean, obviously. times have been tough over the last 3 or 4 years specifically, haven't they? So so it's quite hard to, as you say, keep that joined up approach going. With schools being closed.
Yeah.
But what we did find when those 2 periods where the schools were on remote learning, you had one period of 6 months, to be the first time on the lockdown, and then there was another period after Christmas. Is we communicated as a school above and more than what we would have done with most of with all those vulnerable students and the students who needed this.
Yes, of course.
You don't want to lose touch with them. So for us, it was important that we kept in touch with the likes of you guys, because it was important during those times where we didn't have any face-to-face contact with the students. So if anything, it's been tough over the last 2 or 3 years since the pandemic, but it's probably strengthened those relationships that we've got.
I agree. But you've had a huge shift in staff as well, haven't you? So that must have impacted on the general kind of support that the kids have been used to having, and then it's changed slightly. I know it hasn't changed, but a different face makes things change for kids.
Of course it does. We've had like everywhere nationally now, not just in education, and people are thinking about career pathways and things, and looking at different ways of working. So like all schools, we've had staff move on, we've got new staff coming in, different ideas, different experiences, and people from different authorities. Staff who are coming to work in Bristol and things like that. So, and a bit like I said when I first came to King Alfreds, I was just moving across the board from North Somerset to Somerset, and I hadn't heard of some of the agencies. People come from Bristol and other places would definitely not have heard of it. So, but it's upskilling them and making them understand that we've got these agencies in place that are well established and build good relationships, and and it's the same for the students at school. New staff coming in, they've got to build relationships again with the new staff.
That also takes time, doesn't it?
Of course it does.
To settle in. And...
Yeah, it does. And we're abundantly, noticed it that we've got to build much stronger relationships with our children. I stood up on September the 1st actually with all the staff on the first training day back, and we always go through our key priorities. GCSE outcomes, A-level outcomes, all the normal educational stuff. But I tagged on the bottom of that, sort of the number 5 of the 5 key priorities was we've literally got to support our families more than we ever have done. So I don't know how many, but there'll be plenty of families in our school who are sending their children to school at least to keep warm. We're feeding them. We're giving free porridge out every single morning.
How does that feel? Doing that, because that's quite a.
Well, it feels nice in a way, I suppose, because we are the only school in the secondary school in the community. We're not like Western or
no. They've got
several schools. We are the only secondary school in the town, so we pride ourselves on being a community school. Virtually every child in the town will go to King Alfreds. Their parents went there, their grandparents went there. So we pride ourselves on that, in the fact that we are there to support the community and the local stakeholders. So even though there's more pressure to do that now, it's a good feeling. But equally, it's hard as well, because ultimately we're educationalists and we're trying to get them through their exams. But there's a lot more that we have to do now, and every school's the same. And it's right that we do that. But it's obviously clearly been noticeable over the last 12 to 18 months.
And do you think it's going to get?
We've got to do.
Think it's going to get worse over the next 12 to 18 months?
I don't want to be doom and gloom, but I don't. This cost of living crisis isn't going to go away very quickly, is it? It's going to go through 2023. I'm not sure. So it's going to be tougher for families. It's going to be tougher for children. I don't see it getting any better for a period of time. But that's a holistic societal thing, isn't it? That we're just part of.
How do you build resilience within an environment like that for children? Because I mean, I know from my own personal background that actually without resilience, I wouldn't be where I am today. Yeah. And there's almost, it feels like, I'm probably talking out of turn, that there's almost a level of codependency rather than resilience, and it's societal. It's not just in school. It's like, if you look at, it's the government's fault, it's this fault, it's that fault, I need more money, I need this, I need that. It's
really, really hard, isn't it? Because it's easy to be flippant and turn around and say, and we're all adults, and I've heard it. I've heard my grandparents say, and I've heard my
Yeah.
The parents say, "Oh, children aren't resilient as they used to be."
Yeah, yeah.
It's very easy to say that because, you sometimes see children. I see it in my own children, my own son, and give up too easy and all those sort of things. But actually, I don't think I really feel that way, because actually they are incredibly resilient, because life is so different now to what it was when I was a child growing up. It was a lot simpler then. Yeah, just social media makes so much more pressure.
Yeah, the exposure.
The exposure, the pressure, the peer pressure.
I think also it makes people feel, they see that people are human. And I follow you on Twitter.
Right, yeah,
and some of the stuff that you put out, I think is fantastic. For somebody in your role, I think that's, the bits that you put out and that you say just make you a real person.
Yeah.
When I was at school, my head teacher, I know nothing about them. They were just that scary person in that room.
That's right. And I think I definitely think that the relationships between children and teachers has changed over the last 10, 15, 20 years. When I first started teaching, it was that very sort of didactic teaching. You're a teacher at the front, and when I was at school, it was even more stark. Yeah. Now, there's more human sort of contact, personality contact between, and obviously we have to have the boundaries. We've still got the boundaries, and especially from a social media perspective, but we're having to be more supportive. There's not so much of a barrier of a teacher to a pupil relationship anymore, but you have to be more supportive, because they need that support. They need that support massively.
It's that humanness, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's being a human being, because how you described your head and stuff like that was, they were up there, and they were almost like there's no connection between the two of you, other than the fact that
there was a complete barrier in the way.
Yeah.
But I think children want that and respect that. What I have noticed is, children need boundaries and
definitely
routines. And the pandemic sort of halted that for a period of time. And I was sat at home with my child, trying to do home learning, all those sort of things, and it was so tough for parents doing all that, wasn't it? And there wasn't the routines. And coming back to school, we've had to start trying to embed those routines again and those systems, so they know, because children need that. But equally, it's about, we're having to build different relationships with them now as well. Like you say, be more human around those things, because they need it. They need that caring, nurturing sort of approach, as well as the teacher in front of them teaching lessons. They've got to have that balance. The pastoral teams in school now are absolutely crucial. A lot of the recruitment we've done over the last year to 18 months has all been around pastoral, SEND, learning support, mental health counselling, all those sort of things, because we know that's an area that's going to be really prevalent over the next 12 to 18 months.
And is that sort of training available for your staff as well, in terms of if they want to go and understand mental health more?
Yes.
And things.
Yeah, we have to. And years ago, it was about, you just have that bespoke team. Obviously, each school's got their teams, but now we're trying to be a bit more holistic with the whole of the staff to understand how they can be more nurturing, how they can understand the mental health of the child, how they can act more safely from a safeguarding perspective. So, when it comes to safeguarding is everybody's responsibility, as we know from keeping children safe in education. But equally now there's an expectation, but there's a thirst for all the staff in a school to be able to try and understand children a little bit more, because there are so many children going through such tough lives and tough backgrounds.
But is that because, I suppose, what's going through my head is there's a balance there, isn't there, between looking after the young people that come to the school, but also looking after the teachers that actually work there. Because, I know I've supported some of the staff there, and it's great. But there's lots of staff that are there that probably never ask for support and go home and worry about the child that they've seen today, or I can imagine that. That's just my fancy. But it's like, I suppose I'm coming back to resilience again. It's about sometimes we're too resilient. You can carry too much of a burden, and particularly as a teacher, for myself as a practitioner, that burden can become quite enormous unless there's an open forum to discuss that. So, like at the rehab, we discuss it every day. So every single day we have a team meeting. 2 debriefs after every one-to-one. There's a debrief, blah 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 blah. But you don't get that kind of support when you're in treatment in a school.
Time is the reason for that a lot of the time, and that's easy for me to say flippantly, because you should be making time for those sort of things. But you're absolutely spot on, more so than ever. I'm seeing the teaching profession, not just King Alfreds, but the teaching profession struggling with all those that extra load.
And you've got your own family.
Yeah, we've got our own lives and our own family to look after as well, with our own issues,
dynamics that are going on there
in their family. So, it's incredibly pressurised. Like you say, there's probably dozens of teachers that go home every day who've had a very, very worrying or stark conversation with a child, or been on the end of some behaviours from a child who are really struggling at home, and we're trying to understand those children. So as teachers, we're taking that sort of burden home a little bit, and it's the same for the NHS, it's the same for social services, everybody. But yeah, you're right, and we've thought a lot about that with staff, in terms of well-being, supporting them as well. Our trusts are really good at that. We've got a health shield programs in place that support their health insurance and things like that, and well-being days and sessions. But I think it'll be something that we still need to improve on, and still need to drive.
It's going to be a continuous
thing because if you pick up a paper or read a news article now, there's a dearth of teachers wanting to come into the profession. There's a recruitment and retention issues, So, but it's we've got to keep teachers in school, but they're just not teachers now. They're as rightly, they've got to be pastoral, they've got to be tutors, they've got to be mentors, they've got to support children as
well. Because when I was at school, and I don't know about you two, I'm a bit older than both of you, but the teachers didn't. I mean, literally, it was you just ignored what was going on completely. And even, I'm talking when I was little, and even when I went to King's Wessex for a very short period of time, and even then, it was like you weren't allowed to talk to anybody. Nobody was interested in actually what was going on at home. And I remember going back into the schools. I used to go into the schools and do talks, and the teachers would just ignore what was blatantly obvious, and I said to one of the teachers, that girl is obviously being abused, not our problem. Whereas, thank God.
Well, that just wouldn't function anymore now, that's
But I wonder that, because I wonder if sometimes when you're under the pressure of being a teacher and it's constant, and you've got that one over there and that one over there and this one over there and that one over there, actually sometimes it's the ones that, the quiet one, the person that doesn't necessarily say anything, the one that probably is having an awful time at home but doesn't say anything, is the one that gets missed.
Yeah, and you're right, and that's a fine balance, isn't it? And the worry, that us as a school, as an example, we moved with the times over the last 18 months and realised that we have to create certain provision in school for certain children who can't face mainstream, whether that be from an attendance perspective, because they have so much time off, or whether that be from a mental health perspective, whether it be from a learning perspective. So we've had to initiate different types of programs in school. But you're right, that doesn't mean to say that we've covered every child. There may be a child in there that's going through really quite horrendous at home, and we don't know, and they don't, and that's the awful thing, isn't it? You can't.
Yeah, you're never going to capture everything.
You can't deal with something you don't know about, don't you? And it's exactly. What we are, though, is a school that is incredibly inclusive, incredibly diverse. That I'll give you an example. You've got 100 something children in a pride club. Which has been championed. Because there are lots of children right now who need that support around sexuality, etc. So we've I don't know many schools that have that many children in a pride club, and we've got staff who run it, and we're very inclusive. Now, something like that, for example, where they can go along and be themselves and talk to like-minded individuals in school and teachers who are there to support them, might just be that little thing that makes them feel better about themselves, So
it's that little bit of support.
They might not have ordinarily talked about how they're feeling, and because some of those children might not be able to have those conversations at home quite readily, you know. So, and it helps us to then build relationships with families, and so little things like that we can put in place in school will hopefully negate the child who's probably the quiet, silent one who isn't necessarily saying how they're feeling. You know, and if there is somebody that we notice that clearly is changing behaviours or whatever, then we've got teams that try and pick them up. But it's never ending in that sense. We've got to keep spin lots of plates all the time. So,
it's not an easy job.
No, and I'm not sure I could not do it. I mean, I've done teaching, as in little kids and big kids. I can go and talk to them, but I'm so grateful when I leave.
But equally, you know, I've been teaching 30 years, 28 years now. You know, been in leadership for 10 years. You know, for all the difficult times and the challenges, every so often you just get absolute nuggets of brilliance and you know, things that children will say, or a family will communicate with you, or you do something amazing for the community, or you know, a child will just say something that you think this is why it's worth it, and you know, and every teacher you speak to will say the same. You know, will say, "Oh my God, you know, that's why," because of that golden moment. So, you know, there's the balance for you. It's tough. You work long hours and all those sort of things. And education's difficult now, you know, in challenging times. But you know, I wouldn't change my career.
I mean, it's the same as mine. I mean, working in a rehab, 24 hours a day, 52 weeks a year. At least you go home at night. I know you don't, because you're a senior management, so you have a bit of a 24 hours responsibility too.
But I do get some shutdown time.
Yeah, but it's like, you know. In fact, I was having a conversation with my other manager the other day, and she said, "This is really tough." And I went, "Yeah," and I said, "Well, you can settle up and leave." And she went, "That's never going to happen, because actually, like you say, the good outweighs the difficult times every time. You know, when you've got somebody that's just got married and had a baby, and they're living happily ever after, and they came in off the streets homeless, you know, virtually with a needle hanging out their arm. You think, wow.
And those are the stories that keep you going, aren't they? And you know, I can you know, think of dozens of occasions where, especially when I was teaching in Weston, I lived in Weston, taught in Weston for a long time, and I was young enough to maybe go out at that point of a weekend. I don't know anymore, but I would bump into, you know, ex-students, you know, whilst having a pint of lager at the bar or something, you know, and I can remember them being a little bit difficult at school, but they'd come home and say, you know, they'd be 27, 28 or whatever, and they'd shake me by the hand and buy me a drink and go, "Oh, you were really great, you know, you know, it was thanks to you that, this, that and the other, you know," and
which is great.
And you just, it makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, sort of thing, you know, and you know, I still get that now, even though I'm not probably in contact with children as much as I was as a teacher, you know.
So what subject did you teach?
PE teacher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, trained as PE.
Best one.
Yeah, so so trained as a PE teacher, but I've taught other subjects throughout my career as well. But PE trained, which is good as well, because I love my sport and played sport, and it enables you to have different relationships with kids as well, because you're out on school fixtures and sport and everything brings all happiness and all those sort of things. So I enjoyed that. But even now, you know, in my role now, I see some of the children that have been through our school at King Alfreds, and you know, you'd have probably said in years 7 and 8, I can think of people now, obviously I won't say their names, that there's no way they're going to get through the end of the school. They're not mainstream. And some of the provisions we put in place have come out the other end at 16. Not the greatest exam results, but they're off to college doing an apprenticeship. You know, they've left school and they're happy, and you know, and it just makes a difference. Even that's 5-6 kids a year. You know, the 250 in the year group.
Yeah.
It makes all the difference. And we got some really, really, really strong pastoral staff at school who literally almost support, like a second parent, bringing children through education.
But that's that important part, isn't it? Is having a parent, somebody in your life that you can go to, unconditional. Obviously, there's boundaries, of course there is, but somebody's unconditional that you can rely on, and I think that's so important.
And one of the things that we want to develop is maybe trying to bring some of those students back into school.
Oh, definitely, brilliant idea.
You know, listen to us all day long, us teachers, but and you, I'm sure, you were doing this all the time, people who have been through tough times, you bring them back into school or into the sector you work in and get them to talk to the children. It's so powerful.
But I also
really
think,
is.
but I think it's also about talking to the teachers too. I think, on in-service days, it's a brilliant way to not just bring necessarily kids back, but also bring people back from the community that can say, this is what it was like. Because I think sometimes the teachers don't see that. I mean, I was uneducated. I didn't go to school from the age of 13. I popped into school occasionally.
Yeah.
But, you would never have known that. Nobody would have known that. I mean, I've been to university in my adult life, but I was off school more than I was ever at school.
Yeah. No, and it's such a powerful thing to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, such a powerful thing.
And in those days, they didn't even notice I wasn't there.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it would have been picked up by now.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's a slightly different example. But we had our awards evening on Wednesday night, for awards for the students, top GCSE scorers and people in each subject. But we always invite back an ex-student who's gone on to do something really, really, really well. And so we had a chap come back who left in 2008, who's now working all over the world, and high flying. And he did a speech. And he said, "What sort of things you want to say?" So just tell them your journey.
Yeah.
Just tell them.
Brilliant.
Tell them where you were sat in their shoes 15 years ago, and to tell them your journey and the things you had to overcome. And he was obviously a high flyer and an intelligent young man, and went on to do really well. But equally, we need those students, those children at school who were right on the edge of exclusion or going down the wrong pathway, coming back and speaking to staff and students as well about that. And we've done it with you guys as well, haven't we? Guys that you worked with. I know Rob brought team in. The guys who came in and spoke to our students. It's so powerful. And actually, those children that have those conversations, they remember that for a long, long time.
They do, because it's real life.
It's real life
experiences.
It's absolute real life, and they hear it. Like you said, even though teachers' relationship with children is a little bit different nowadays, we're still teachers. If a child bumps into me in Asda supermarket, they don't think I shop. I'm a humanoid. What you can shop. There's still that. Like you remember when you see a teacher in the supermarket, it's like you've bumped into David Beckham.
Yeah, it's a bit odd.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. My daughter teaches at Alfreds. She's an English teacher, and she's just started to experience it now. She's 24, and she'll walk around the shops, and the kids will run up to her like they've got prodder to check it's her.
She's human.
She's human. But yeah, so it's quite.
So what you've got a son and a daughter?
I've got two sons and a daughter.
Oh, two sons. Oh, wow.
My daughter's she's in a second year of teaching at King Alf's. My son is 20 and he's doing. He hasn't gone to uni. Did his A levels. Hasn't gone to uni, but he's doing a business degree apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So he works from home, computers in the bedroom sort of thing. He works for Babcock. He's doing really, really well. And my younger one's 14. So.
Cool, you've got your hands full.
Yeah,
That's a big gap
still
as
at home as well. We haven't left yet, so still at home. But yeah, it's I like that.
Oh yeah, it's lovely.
One time moved out.
I can't get rid of mine full stop. So it's like
I can't afford to move out. That's the problem.
Well, it's just so expensive.
But that's great. And it's great to have my daughter at school as well and seeing her flourish in her career. So it's good.
Have you ever had something? I don't know if you know. My youngest son's a DJ and music producer.
Oh right, no, I didn't know that.
Quite famous in parts of the world.
Oh, okay.
And his music teacher said to him that he would never amount to anything, and he was really derogatory about him. Right. And I mean, really, to the degree that as parents we had to go in and have a little word in his ear.
Yeah.
And have you ever done that when you said something to a kid and you think, "Oh my word, I wished I hadn't said that"?
don't think I have. I'd like to think I've been professional all my career. I don't think I have. I don't think I would ever have said to someone, "You're never going to get anywhere. You're a waste of space," because A, it's not nice, and B, it could come back and haunt me, like you say. But I can think of children over the many years I've taught who I've seen later, and they're incredibly successful. And I thought, oh my God,
how did that
happen? Because actually, I'm a firm believer. I'm a pastoralist by nature. I was a PE teacher, but I went down the head of year route, and pastoral behaviour and all this was important. And I've often met with lots of parents, and I've bumped into students afterwards. I've not always been someone. It's got to be about academic. It's got to be academic. Not some of the most famous people in the world have got Richard Branson's in as well. They didn't leave school loads of exams. So I've always said it doesn't necessarily. It gives you a good ticket.
Yeah,
It clearly gives you a good ticket, and I shouldn't be saying that academic results aren't important. They are, but there are other routes you can go down to be successful. So it's always a bit careful. You have to be careful you don't say to somebody, you're never going to make it. And I wouldn't expect any of my teachers to say that. But yeah, it's there's different ways you can be successful now.
Oh gosh,
there really is.
That having to get top grades and go to university and all those sort of things. So different ways of doing it. But different avenues that students can go down. I do like bumping into students and finding out what they've done and where they are in 10, 15 years.
It is nice. We do that with the people from the rehab as well.
Yeah.
And also people from the charity. I mean, the charity's been going a while, and we get people that ring us and say, this is what I want to, and thank you very much, or whatever their circumstances are. It's very rewarding to get that.
Yeah.
I love getting feedback from anybody.
Yeah.
Even if it's negative, because actually you learn from that every time. But
I think for us is trying to, I grew up in Cornwall as well, so I've always lived in the southwest, and it's about trying to get children to understand there's a world outside Somerset or outside, I mean, we've got 4 or 5 students currently at Oxbridge, Cambridge, who've been through King Alfreds, so that's lots of Russell Group universities, and they do go off travelling, some up in Edinburgh and everywhere. But equally, there are some families in the southwest don't ever come out of the southwest, do they? And it's important about culturally, get out and about and experience the world, and there's more out there, So that's really important as well. It's not just about academia, is it? It's about
life.
Yeah.
So how do you get? Sorry, Mike. So how do you manage your mental health, bearing in mind you are top of your tree in your school, and because I support quite a lot of heads and
senior leaders, it's been a bit of an eye opener for me, actually. I've got to be honest, for the last 18 months. Like I said, I've been an assistant head and a deputy head 7, 8, 9, 10 years before this. There was a distinct, and obviously assistant head to deputy head, there's a bit of a leap, in responsibility. But actually, once you become a head teacher, I didn't realise it too. And in fact, Nathan Jenkins told me this. Who I took over from TONA, he said, until you sat in the chair, you don't realise what it's like until you sat in the chair. You can't replicate that until you're there. And it wasn't until I did it I realised that the actual probably operational stuff of the tiredness of running around each day running a school isn't there, but it's the fact that it's your school.
It's the enormity of it all.
The enormity of it and the pressure. So, and I'll be honest, I didn't cope with it very well initially. If my wife was sat next to me now, she'd definitely say I didn't cope with it very well. She was saying, that you need to every hour, every minute of every day. I was thinking work. And I've had to specifically take myself away from that. Have strategies to do it. Sort of Friday night for me is sacrosanct. I won't work. Saturday I won't work. I'm lucky that my younger one plays sport, so I take him out and take him away. He often goes sport all over the southwest, so I'm doing that with him. Which sometimes my wife will say to me, "Well, you must be tired driving all the way." No, because it's something different. I enjoy it. Sat on the side of the football pitch or whatever it might be, watching the sun play. And and then I switch back on again sort of Sunday afternoon. But it can, if I'm not careful, it can be all encompassing. And especially when you've got one of these mobile phones, where there's emails, Twitter, or
exactly, it's always something.
So finding the balance, and it was very interesting that you mentioned that when I had my interview for the job, one of the questions was, how are you going to manage your own work? How are you going to manage your own emotional health and well-being and all those sort of things? I can't remember what answer I gave at the time, but probably the wrong one, because I've got to change things. But yeah, it's. I think I'm still learning. I think I'm still trying to come to terms with that, and try and balance work and home life. And obviously with the job as well, there are different pinch points throughout the year as well. There are sometimes, the last 2 weeks of the summer term, I probably wasn't getting home before 9, 10 o'clock, or 3 nights out of the 5, because there were concerts and awards evenings and all those sort of things, and you've got to balance that as well. And I'll tell you what, I'm also really, really keen to make sure I get right is my own staff as well, and especially my leadership team.
Yeah,
is trying to protect them a little bit as well. Yeah. I've got to look after my own workload, work-life balance, but I'm trying to make sure that they're doing the same as well, which is not an extra pressure for me, but it's something that I'm conscious of.
It's a responsibility.
And as well as all the other staff, constantly thinking, how can I make sure that the staff are not too overworked, not too tired, and it's really, really hard right now, as well as the children. The staff, I've got a duty of care for the children and for the staff, and that's trying to keep that balance right. It's not always easy, but it's always prevalent in my mind. How do we get that balance right? But I'm better now. I'm better now than I was. But I've been doing 18 months. So
you sort of got
more comfortable into the
I got into the rhythm of it now, and when I first took over, it was very much, right, I'm a new head, I've got to, and now I've sort of stabilised a little bit and realised, right, you can't change the world, you can't do everything straight away, you've got a team beneath you that you can delegate to, and all those sort of things. So but that just comes with experience. And I'm great that I've got people above me, like Nathan as the CEO.
You've got a bit of a support as well.
Yeah, and part of the central team, other members of the central team that I work with closely. Work with him, who I can pick the phone up to. We're a great trust. I mean, we're able to do that. In comparison, a small trust right now. So I'm able to pick the phone up, and I can speak to any of them who are experienced head teachers and the roles. They can give me support as well. So that's one strategy that I use, which is really helpful. And sometimes you need that person who's been there and done it, and they can tell you exactly
just to learn from.
Do this, don't do that. We've got, our tagline is students first, cherishing staff, serving community. We try to stick to that as much as possible. Always try and put the children first. Cherish the staff that work in the trust. Serve the community that we serve. So it's easy to have taglines, but we try to bring ourselves back to that all the time. Each time we think about what's our mantra.
So
it's really good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really conscious of time because you've got to leave shortly, so we've got to ask you our big question that we ask everybody, which is what's your goal for the next 12 months? Because ideally, we'd like you to come back in 12 months' time and talk to us about this goal and how you've achieved it.
Right. So the goal for me, I've sort of alluded to it, I suppose, is obviously I want the school to be the best possible school it can be. But that means so many different things.
Yeah.
Wrongly or rightly, we're measured on outcomes. We're measured on what children leave with exam results. So that always has to be a goal for me, to make sure that every time students leave, whether they be year 11 or year 13, have the best possible outcomes and they go off the best possible pathways. But personally, my goal now is to sit here this time next year and increase the amount we are as a community school. All right, so because I'm absolutely conscious that this is the toughest time ever for children growing up in families. I think we all know that. We said right at the start of the interview, I don't know whether it's going to get any easier before it gets worse before it gets any easier. I think so. I want to sit here this time next year and probably have doubled or tripled the amount of work we do in the community, families, and that will be like some of you guys, with external agencies and building those relationships and stabilising those relationships and growing those relationships. But I want, the King Alfred School is probably one of the biggest employers in the town. 1,500 people come through that every day, children and staff.
Yeah.
So we should be opening our doors as a venue for people coming in, and I don't think we do enough of that. I don't think we have enough coffee mornings for parents to come in and talk about how they're feeling. I don't think we have enough sporting events of a weekend or an evening, lettings and all those sort of things. So that's a big drive for me. We're looking at sustainability as a school. Opening some of our fields up to perhaps allotments and things like that for the community. All those sort of things, just so we become a hub. I think we do a little bit of it, but we need to do a lot more. And I think we need to give a lot more back. I think we're able to give a lot more back to the community. We've started doing a little bit of that. We've opened up regular parent forums, getting parents in to talk about different parts of school, whether it be education, homework, attendance, safeguarding, whatever it might be. I want to grow that.
But is there a link? And I think I always feel that this is something that's kind of happened in schools where they don't have that link. You're talking about this goal, but it's like the link between education. Education isn't just, like you say, a GCSE or an A-level or whatever. It's that bit about having people in the community come in and educate people about being a bricklayer.
100%.
But, doing what I do for a living, how that starts, that for the children as well as the educators.
Yeah, I mean, we've got really good careers provision across the trust, and we do things like employer days, where employers come. But they're, as I just said, an employer day.
It's not a regular thing,
and they're great. And our career, like I said, our careers provision is fantastic. What they do, but I think there's more scope to grow that. Like
Definitely,
you say, assemblies, drop-ins, workshops, all this sort of stuff, where we bring in, we bring in parents who are, like you say, a bricklayer or a landscape gardener or whatever.
For 6 months, and they come.
In you come, do something, talk about what you do, enthuse some children to go down that pathway in this way, because children are not always knowing what they want to do.
That's so very true. But also, when they look around the world, and they've got the likes of all these influencers and footballers and all of these high-paid, high-profile jobs, and sometimes some of these smaller jobs. Sorry, small is probably the wrong word, but not as high-profile. They sort of might not know about them, might forget about them. So I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah,
there is also that bit where, when we were at school. When I was at school, they literally had bricklaying classes. They had, and that came once a week. You had a bricklaying class, or you had a plasterer come in, or you had somebody that was a blacksmith, or something like that. They built those relationships with people to develop because those career paths are not just difficult for teaching; they're difficult for all of the. It's really hard around here to retain people, partly because of Hinckley, because Hinckley are drawing everybody over. But eventually Hinckley's going to finish, and people are going to want different kind of careers, if you see what I'm saying. And I think it's really important. We used to get the kids come to the rehab, they'd come for a week, do their work experience. We haven't had them for ages, but they were brilliant. Honestly, they were absolutely out of this world. Give them a project, they just got on with it. Really
obviously statutory wise, we have to do work experience every year with our year 10s and year 12s. We do that, but is there more scope for certain students to be able to get out and about and do a bit of work?
And elongate it and kind of give them those options and bring that. I can see that.
And we do it with. I talked about some of the provisions we got in school for some students who are struggling with mainstream. Part of those provisions we put on, there's work experience embedded into that. And it works really well for them. They're coming in for 3 days a week and they're doing their core subjects along with some emotional literacy type training and regulation type stuff, but then top and tail it Monday and Friday each week. They're getting out in the community doing some work experience. And
it's brilliant.
And you see a change in those children because it's life, isn't it? It's life skills.
That's right.
And I think the more we go on and how difficult it is in society right now, the more avenues we need to give children.
It's about finding their place in the world, really,
isn't it? Yeah, that's right. Every year, 250 children come into our school. they're not all going to disappear off university or of those wonderfully high paid jobs that you talk about. We've got to find everybody's niche.
It's called the real world, isn't it?
Of course it is. So that's probably a goal for me, is to.
So it's a big goal, but
it's a big goal, and it's not something that's going to happen in 6 months, is it? You've got to build that over time, but we're all on the same page with that, and I think parents want that as well. The community wants that. The community, it can't just be us driving it. It's got the community.
Everybody's got to be part.
Local business people. Everybody's got to be part of that, and we've got to infuse the children, make them understand that we're all pushing in the right direction for them.
I think that's really exciting. So it'll be great to see how you've got on in 12 months'
hopefully.
time.
Hopefully.
We'll drag you back.
Yeah, drag me back. I know where you are now.
You do. You won't get lost. Everybody does. And we don't have a sign on.
No, there was no sign. There was a big sign out
No.
there.
Podcast studio.
Podcast studio. No, I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for coming. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Dan.
Thank you.